Come in, Southern California. This is Radio Free Los Angeles. Do you copy? Repeat, do you copy?
Now transmitting from behind the Iron Curtain in the People's Republic of California, we bring you the voice of free men, free markets, and limited constitutional government. Welcome to citizen-sponsored Radio Free Los Angeles with President of the California Taxpayers Union, Mike Alexander, and editor of the Taxpayer Gazette, Jonathan Wilson.
Hey, all right. Back with you here, Mike Alexander, Jonathan Wilson, Radio Free Los Angeles, coming to you from the KRLA studios in downtown Glendale, and we hope you be a part of the program. Our telephone number here is 866-870-5752. I'm on here with Jonathan Wilson tonight. We got a great program ready for you, and as usual, we'll be on for an hour and a half, and towards the end of the third half hour, that is somewhere around 20 after 9, we will have our ever-popular Government Grifter of the Week award. Where are we looking this week?
Where do you think? LAUSD, baby.
Oh, yeah. And, let me check. My earphones here are firing off in my ear. Hang on. These things get turned way up. You're too loud even for my old deaf ears. If you want to be part of the program, we gave you the number. You can also go to our Facebook site, Radio Free Los Angeles. Just type that in there, and it'll take it to you. And, of course, we have a couple of websites we always like to remind you about, RadioFreeLosAngeles.net. Again, RadioFreeLosAngeles.net. If you go there, you can make sure to get copies of our podcasts when we send them out each week. And we've had some great broadcasts here lately, some great guests. And tonight is no different. But before I do, I want to remind everybody we're having another school choice event. That's a week from yesterday. That's Saturday, March 9th. Jonathan, why don't you give everybody the details on that, who should come, so forth?
Yeah, it's Organizing for Victory, so we're going to do grassroots training on Saturday at the Romanesque Room from 9 a.m. to noon.
Now, we had a lot of people come to our first event, which was on, I think, Saturday, February 2nd, thereabouts. Should those people, have they heard enough, or should they come again?
No, this is a very important meeting. Yeah. It's we're going to be training folks on how to organize in their community and get the word out about school choice. So we're going to have to organize like we've never organized before.
Exactly. Yeah. And this subject is so important that in the we're going to talk about a number of things here in the first half hour. In the second half hour, I have a guest coming on that I'll tell you about. Then in the third half hour, Jonathan and I are really going to go into detail on how to organize politically. In fact, he and I were going round and round about this subject before tonight's broadcast, and we determined that it's really important. And Jonathan and I, who are so experienced in it, really need to start talking to you, because you, the citizen, are just going to have to take ownership of this. You're paying the bills, and at the rate at which we're collapsing culturally and financially, if citizens don't get involved and take part in really important campaigns, we're going to lose this thing. It really is easy to go backwards, and I'm going to talk a little bit about those things as well in my audio essay tonight. Before I go to the audio essay here, I want to talk about our guests that we're going to have coming up. As you know, the big issue, one of the big news items here in Los Angeles over the last few weeks has been the Los Angeles Unified So-Called School District has passed a motion. They want to put a parcel tax on the ballot for the June ballot, which would be the first part of June, and that measure is intended to raise upwards of $500 million. if my experience with taxes is any guideline, is going to end up raising a lot more money than that. In any event, I can tell you what the proposal is, and that is, if passed by the voters, it would impose a 16 cents per square foot of building improvements on properties within the district. The parcel tax, which would remain in effect for 10 years, would raise an estimated $500 million per year.
Wow.
Yeah, but so we've got this the 16 cents per square foot. So no matter what the valuation is on your building, everybody's going to pay the same tax, which in some ways is very equitable. But that means that every house in Los Angeles is going to have another 16 cents added on to it. And that's going to be a lot of money for a lot of apartment owners and commercial property owners. There's going to be big additional tax bills on those places, but also it's going to attach to improve real property, including single-family dwellings and apartment houses and everything else. So one way or the other, you, the average taxpayer out there, you're going to start paying a lot more money. And if you think because you rent you're going to avoid it, you need to be more realistic than that, because this extra tax is just going to get passed on to you in the form of higher rent. And that's what we're dealing with in all of these situations. So the thieves down at the so-called school district are determined to bring in more money, even at the same time that their schools are the worst of the worst. Out of 700 schools in the state of California that are failing, 100 of those failing schools are in the Los Angeles Unified School District. It'd be one thing if their results were up there, but it's another thing when their performance is so bad. So I will look forward to hearing some of you call in about this. Now, the other thing that happened this past week that everybody has commented on is the meltdown in the Republican Party with nasty Pelosi. What's that chick's name? Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, whatever they're called?
Yeah.
Okay, so those two people, as you know, put Democrats in the room and told them that they were going to toe the party line. Now, to a certain extent, there's nothing new about that. What is remarkable is what provoked that. And what provoked it was a gun background, another piece of Democrat legislation requiring the purchasers of firearms, including privately purchased firearms, have a background check. And that's not news. We've done it for commercial purchases for years, but now they're proposing to extend this to others. Well, the Republicans, even though they're minority in the House, had the opportunity to offer an amendment. And one of the amendments that was offered would require that if there was any attempt on the part of an illegal alien to purchase a weapon, that fact had to be reported to ICE. Okay, so some Democrats in purple states or difficult districts thought for a second, well, heck, here is my opportunity to sound reasonable, right? Do something. They're not going to get that gun anyway once they find out they're once they find out they're an alien, because I don't think that they can purchase weapons to start with legally. But what the Republicans wanted was to make sure that fact was reported. Well, Pelosi and the rest of them set air right now. Boy, I tell you, that semi came to a halt, and they went back there and brought all the Democrats in a room and told them that you were going to vote the party line. There's no freedom here, no nada. And the idiot Cortez there, she says, yeah, and we're going to primary you. And so anybody doesn't vote with us, you're against us. That can't be. We're going to find somebody to run against you in your district. So what they were enforcing was party discipline. Now, none of that is any news to most of you who are informed out there. I know you've all heard it. But here's my take on that. And this has been a problem for me for a lot of years. This is just the most recent example of our changeover to away from representative government and toward government by party discipline. What they were really telling these Democrats was that they had no right to vote independent of the party itself. They were being told that they could not vote their conscience, or they could not vote the way that they felt that their constituents wanted them to vote on these issues. So there was no independent judgment. And yet, ladies and gentlemen, when we send somebody from our district here, we have a right to expect that they will represent our interests. That is it not, the whole idea of representative government? And yet with Nancy Pelosi here and her tactics, and there's nothing new about them, I'll talk about Republicans in a second. Even though there's nothing new about them, if you look at it for what it is a move away from our constitutional arrangements. Whatever it is that they're going to say or do, the average congressman or senator needs to be able to vote independent of the party when necessary to do so. There's no provision in the Constitution for government by the parties, but yet they do. Now, let's look at the Republicans for a second. They are just as guilty of this thing, but in another way. Let's look at the most glaring example of party behavior on the Republican side, and that would be Mitch McConnell, whose practice is to run the Senate with a lot of discipline on the issues where he needs and wants discipline. And how does he get it? By yelling and screaming about him? No. What he does is something different. He uses the money that he gathers through the senatorial campaign finance committees, and he goes out into these states, and he's looking for senators who will vote with him and go along with his program and his legislative priorities rather than their own. And that's why McConnell, on a number of occasions, has gone out into states and instead of backing conservatives who could win, backed rhinos who would go along with him, or he chose to give money to the rhinos rather than the conservative to punish them. This happened this is how we got that one idiot senator in Alabama. This is how we got Thad Cochran back into the Senate in Mississippi and a few other places. It was outrageous. So we see it in his behavior. But the place where party discipline as a substitute or party governance as a substitute for representative government under a Constitution is most evident is in the budgetary process. So what do we see there? Excuse me just a second. My cough button isn't working here. So where do we see that? What we see it mostly is in the budgetary process. We no longer have an orderly budgetary process. I'm not sure how long it's been since Congress has produced a budget, but it's at least over 10 years. It goes back before the Obama administration. And we don't have regular order within the Congress. That is, with individual bills being brought up and the policy that they're being pursued for, the amount of money that's being appropriated is independently determined. No, what they do is they take all these bills, they sweep them up into one great big huge omnibus bill, and then instead of even making it a budget, what they do is turn it into a continuing resolution, which is not a budgetary process. Now, how does that deal get done? Well, we saw how it gets done when we were talking about closing down the government. We had Pelosi in there. We had probably McCarthy, the minority leader from the House. We had Plugs Schumer in there. I think that's what Rush calls him. I call him Upchuck Schumer. And then we had McConnell in there, who was silent as a monk on retreat. He had nothing to say, just sitting there like an old toad. But that's how it gets done. We end up with a whole bunch of lobbyists in the hallways and the back rooms of the House and the Senate. Then half a dozen strong people get together and negotiate the entire budget. Now, I ask you, where is the independent representation happening? Where is it that your representative, for good or ill, is actually on record as voting for or against a particular project? And so Planned Parenthood gets in there. There's never any independent hearings on the voting for Planned Parenthood, and that's what they do. Now, it is interesting that this past week that my retarded cousin, that would be Lamar Alexander from Tennessee, was quoted on radio. He's not actually my cousin, but I assume he's somewhere there in the genetic branches, the very low branches, I might add. Lamar Alexander pipes up and actually compares Donald Trump to George III, don't you know?
Oh, really?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he said, we had a war over this. He bellowed, and we just can't have the president going off and spending money and doing things that invade the prerogatives of Congress, so forth and so on. Of course, we know that's just all a load of garbage. And all he is an open borders guy who's responding to his big donors. But he complained about Trump doing that. But let's look at what Congress does each and every year. Congress has turned over enormous parts of its right to spend money and to legislate. They've turned it over to the administrative agencies, who crank out tens of thousands of pages of new regulations every year, and each of those regulations has the force of law. And those regulations can often be enforced by criminal penalties. The same, the EPA, the Department of Labor, IRS, all these kinds of places there are exercising actual legislative authority. And what are those agencies? Well, the answer there is that those agencies are part of the executive. So, Chuck and Lamar, if you guys are so upset about the delegation of your powers and the usurpation of congressional prerogatives, why don't you cut back the power of the agencies and take that back into your hands? Why do you choose to give part of the judicial branch's power over to those same agencies who get to conduct hearings, make determinations of fact, determine liability, and make criminal referrals? Why don't you give the judicial function back to the judiciary? What happens in the end is that what we're seeing here, ladies and gentlemen, is a complete reformation of our governing arrangements. And this has happened at the same time, or has been accompanied by, preceded by, a decline in our representative process. And right now, if you call your representative, it's apparent to us sitting right here right now, if you have a Democrat representative, and I don't know who represents this district here in Glendale, but I think it's that crook, Adam Schiff for brains. Schiff is over here. He might be an exception, but if you take a Democrat anyplace else, you now realize that no matter what you say or do, as far as trying to influence your congressman, that it won't have any effect as long as Pelosi and Ocasio-Cortez are yelling and screaming at these people. So where's our representation? Where the hell is it? We're not represented, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to have to get really busy in this area. Now, why do I mention this? I can hear some people saying, Mike, your show is supposed to be about state and local, not about the federal follies. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the same thing happens on the local level, whether it's the city council or this close connection between the unions and the bureaucracies. The state of California has the same kind of party discipline. You don't go against the party. If you do go against the party, it's because they gave you a pass so that you could go back and look good in your district and claim that you're voting for something that might appeal to independents or the occasional Republican, but ultimately they know you to be a reliable vote for the party of one. So we are represented by one party, and as you can see from the behavior of McConnell in Washington and many of the Republicans right here in our state and in our cities, they too are all part of a cabal. They get together and cut deals, and in the end, the citizen is left out of the equation. We're not asked, and in fact, they have such a low regard for us that they desire to replace us by making us irrelevant within the districts through a gerrymandering process that we talked about last week, or by actually importing new citizens into our country so they can get people that they like better who will vote along with them. And, of course, they carry this process out to its logical extent or extreme by brainwashing and indoctrinating kids in schools to disagree with you and me, so that in the end we operate not on the consent of the governed, but we exist at the caprice and the whim of whose whom we have elected. So our votes are increasingly meaningless. In fact, we even see it in the judiciary, where we have people like Justice Roberts and maybe even Chief Justice Roberts now, but maybe even Justice Kavanaugh. They come in front of Congress and they tell us how they're going to vote and how much they believe, and then they go right up there on the bench and start voting with the other team. So much for consistency. So there is my audio essay for the evening. I hope that it provokes some discussion, or at least some greater awareness of what's going on. I hope that you will read the news with that in mind. And this is why we are coming to resemble much the Communist Party and other totalitarian governments, much more so than what we have here. All right, now, in the next half hour, we just got a few minutes before our break. In the next half hour, we're going to have my friend Richard Michael, Big Bad Bonds, and he will be coming on to discuss the latest proposal of the Los Angeles Unified School District to pass a parcel tax and to raise taxes by $500 million at least within the area covered by the Los Angeles Unified School District. And he will also discuss recent developments in bond litigation and recent legislative developments that will capture us all. So if you would like to be part of the program, go ahead and call in. We can begin to take your calls later in the next half hour. We can be reached at 866-870-5752. And if they want to contribute, Jonathan, where do they go?
Go to schoolchoice2020.org and click the contribute button. You can sign up for monthly $5 a month, or you can go up as much as $50 a month.
Exactly. How much time do we have in there? Got 1 minute? Yeah. The other thing that we're going to discuss in the third half hour at the 9 o'clock to 9:30 segment is that we're going to talk about the importance of contribution and how and why that contribution is important and how it enables us to leverage your participation and your activism into something much larger to get the big investors that come in on the program. All right, we'll be back with you in a few after the half-hour break. Mike Alexander, Jonathan Wilson, Radio Free Los Angeles.
Come in, Southern California. This is Radio Free Los Angeles. Do you copy? Repeat, do you copy?
Now transmitting from behind the Iron Curtain in the People's Republic of California, we bring you the voice of free men, free markets, and limited constitutional government. Welcome to citizen-sponsored Radio Free Los Angeles with President of the California Taxpayers Union, Mike Alexander, and editor of the Taxpayer Gazette, Jonathan Wilson.
Yes, sir. Back with you here. Mike Alexander, Jonathan Wilson, Radio Free Los Angeles. If you'd like to be part of the program, call in at 866-870-5752. And don't forget to be a real big part of our program by going to radiofreelosangeles.net. That's all spelled out, radiofreelosangeles.net. Sign up there for our podcast, but most importantly, sign up there to contribute to the support of this program. You can also do the same thing at schoolchoice2020.org. Again, schoolchoice2020.org. Whichever place you choose to patronize and contribute, we can assure you that it'll be put to good use. Now, our guest here for the half hour, I'm happy to introduce to you once again, welcome back, Richard Michael from Walnut, and his website is Big Bad Bonds. He's got a few other websites he runs too, but I would love to hear from him here tonight on the Los Angeles Unified School District's proposed parcel tax. How are you this evening, Richard?
I'm fine, Mike. How are you?
All right, great. Maybe you could give us an update on that. I told the audience earlier what it provided, a 16 cents per square foot tax. It's going to run 10 years. It's intended to raise about $500 million. You're an expert in these areas, self-educated on the issue of bonds. What does this bond say? What's it going to do?
Well, this isn't a bond exactly.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. It's a parcel tax. I misspoke.
Tax.
Yeah.
But why it's under my scrutiny, I guess, right now, is because all these measures that are being put on the ballot since the beginning of 2018 have been violating the advocacy rules of the new law that went into effect back then.
Yes.
And so I've been keeping track of these because there are things that people can do about these measures even if they pass.
Okay, now let me stop you there. You and I spoke with each other earlier this afternoon, and after I got off of the phone, I took some time to go in there and look up AB 195, which, according to you, was effective last January or thereabouts. And the language, if it's the same as the proposal, provides as follows. Well, there's some other things about where it's supposed to have a yes and a no. But in the other language, it says, if the proposed measure imposes a tax or raises the tax, the ballot shall include in the statement of the measure to be voted on the amount of the money to be raised annually and the rate and duration of the tax to be levied. That was paragraph B. C is the important one for you. The statement of the measure, everybody pay attention, the statement of the measure shall be a true and impartial synopsis of the purpose of the proposed measure, and here's the big language, and shall be in language that is neither argumentative nor likely to create prejudice for or against the measure, unquote. Now, I assume that's the language that you're talking about. It sounds a little vague, but in practice it's pretty strict, isn't it, Richard?
Yes, it is pretty strict. It's the same kind of language that's used for the state ballot measures. Mm-hmm. So all the state propositions are under similar language, almost identical language to what you've just cited there.
Yes.
This is the first time back in 2018 that this same restrictions have been applied to local measures, and that's why this is so important.
Right. So when we get particularly into revenue measures and tax increases, the local entities and even school districts and so forth have a habit of providing summaries or titles for their proposed tax or legislation that is designed to sway the voter. Could you give me an example of something that you really can't do in a measure? Or give me the right way. This is a tax measure. It's going to increase to 16 cents. Projected $500 million per year will be raised from this, and it's going to last for 10 years. That would seem to be a pretty compliant statement. Would that meet with your scrutiny, Richard? One?
That particular part of it is actually required by the statute.
Yes.
And of the three parts of the statute that were changed in 2018 or effective 2018, typically the school measures meet the second requirement, which is the part that you're describing there.
Right.
The tax rate, the amount to be raised annually, and the duration.
Right, and if that's all it said, that would be okay. Your problem is with the other things that are said.
Exactly.
Give me an example. Tell the audience. Give them a few examples.
Sure. Well, I actually have the proposed measure that will appear on the ballot.
As luck would have it. All right.
Remember that the schools or anyone can argue. They can make arguments. They can produce literature to some extent, and their campaign committees can absolutely lie and do whatever they want because in politics almost everything is okay to do. But on the ballot itself, and that's what we're talking about here, the 75-word section that the voters mark their yes or no next to, that's the issue that we're at here. And to give you an example,
please.
Here's what the title says. And there's no authority for a title in the Elections Code. So the title says, Quality Teacher, Class Size Reduction, and Local School Safety Measure. Who would vote for that?
Right.
And that's selling what, in other words, that you're going to get, if you vote for this, you'll get quality teachers, smaller class sizes, and school safety.
Right, and that goes right
from the teachers themselves, which Los Angeles Unified has a particular problem with.
Right, and that goes directly against the language of the statute, which says that the language shall use language that is, quote, neither argumentative nor likely to create prejudice for or against the measure, unquote. And when you talk about quality education, it's clearly objectionable. What else? Give me some other examples, either in that measure or others.
They add in here some things right at the end, which most of these school measures and most of the even non-school measures, all local tax measures, add in these two things that appear to sway voters. They say annual audits, oversight, and oversight. So, in other words, at the very end of the question that you see on the ballot, it says requiring annual audits and oversight. Well, when you look at the measure itself, the oversight doesn't exist. The district didn't even put in a oversight scheme, and there's no statutory oversight that is required. So this is only up to themselves, and it says the Board of Education will develop some kind of oversight. Okay. And it doesn't basically say anything in the measure. They completely leave it out to make it, after you vote on it, then they'll decide that they'll pick their favorite social justice warriors to be on the oversight committee to make sure that all the people that are going to get a share of the money that's going to be spent here
Right.
will be able to have a say in that it's spent okay.
Right. Now, Mike, in addition, Richard, in addition to that objectionable language, we also know that the school district, in the course of its communications and its other activities, by and through the teachers in the classroom, and attempt to influence students and or parents through the students, they're going to engage in a wide variety of electioneering, which is prohibited by the statute. A number of other statutes, and many of these things are criminal violations. Now, a lot of these entities have been caught with their fingers in the cookie jar. For example, the County of Los Angeles in that Measure M, the transportation measure. There have been there were other examples that you and I discussed. For example, recent sales tax measures that were passed in Pasadena, Glendale, and Burbank. You've got some problems with those too, don't you?
Yes. Basically, there were 410 local measures that passed, local tax measures that passed in 2018, and one is already passed for 2019, and a couple more are coming up on Tuesday. But so those particular measures did the same kinds of things that we're talking about with the LA Unified. They didn't follow the law, and because they didn't follow the law, and because the ballots were printed in violation of the law. In other words, the ballots don't conform to the law that you just read them about the requirements for what must appear on the ballot. That it must be impartial, simply a synopsis, and basically not argumentative in any way.
Right.
Well, for example, and I'm just going to ring one out here because it's Los Angeles County. La Puente put a sales tax on in November, and it had, besides exceeding the 75-word limit for which the county registrar allowed, the La Puente had a huge title saying, "We're going to make everything safe, and you'll never have to worry about your emergency services and anything else." So this is what they do, and we're at a point where we still have time. Anyone who wishes, any one of these measures that passed in Los Angeles County or any of the other counties around the state, there were 310 of them in November. There is still time to file, based on this new law, to file election contests against the county registrar for printing ballots that didn't conform with the law.
Yes.
And that's one of the grounds for an election contest. So we're encouraging people to still do this, and if they don't understand what, there's some information on my website.
Yes.
General value.
I was just going to say, now you've got a ton of information on your website for people who are interested in such things. I've been to it myself. Very impressive. What is that website, Richard?
BigBadBonds.com is the domain.
Big Bad Bonds. All right. So bigbadbonds.what? Org?
.com.
BigBadBonds.com. You go there, file a request that'll be forwarded to Richard, and then he'll make sure that you get your credentials if you're somebody who's interested in attacking these things. Now, you have been engaged with others in some litigation throughout the state. What was that one place that we mentioned? Was that Stockton or someplace else?
Yeah, no, that was Stockton.
Okay.
One of the 5 biggest school districts in the state. And they put a bond on in June.
Yes.
And because I had been working on this since last February, we were able to find a person in Stockton, or a couple of people actually, who signed on to the suit, and now it is in court, and we're going to. It's a pretty, nothing is absolutely certain, but the law, the written law by the judges of the Supreme Court of California and many of the appellate courts have all ruled that this kind of activity on the ballot vitiates an election.
Yes.
Which means it makes it invalid.
Yes. Okay. It's very, very interesting. Well, Richard, I want to thank you very much for calling in tonight and briefing us and bringing us up to date. I'm going to be in touch with you on a few other things, the things you and I discussed earlier today. I'll try to connect with you sometime tomorrow. We'll carry it from there. And meanwhile, for all of you out there who are concerned citizens and want to attack it in these cities like Pasadena, Glendale, Burbank, and whatnot, Richard is loaded over there, and they're already making progress in some of the other cities. And, neither the courts nor the cities or the districts are prepared for this kind of citizen pushback. It's taken them by surprise, and it has a chance to succeed. And Richard's the guy that's got the goods on him. So, Richard, thanks very much, my friend, and we look forward to having you on again.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. So we've had on tonight Richard Michael of Walnut Big Bad Bonds. Very, very interesting information.
Yeah, it's a great website. He's got lots of information on his website.
He does. Yeah,
he's fighting the good fight. I tell you what.
He is. And we sit here, these cities and the unions of school districts, they just go out there and taxes, put some on the ballot, and people don't go to the polls, or those who oppose these issues are put at a disadvantage by the power that the city has to shape the very name of the tax proposal or the bond proposal to put in as an electioneering, and we're all supporting that.
Yeah.
So we're fighting with the people that are supposed to be working for us. We're fighting with them over our money when we bother to fight at all. And this is a hell of a problem. Well, in any event, I've got some callers I'm going to start taking. If you'd like to be part of the show, 866-870-5752. We now have Mike from El Segundo. How are you this evening, Mike?
Hi, I'm fine. Thank you. Thank you for your great show, and thank you very much for having Richard Michael on as a guest at bonds.com. He does a lot of hard work for the people, for the taxpayers, and for liberty, and he's to really be commended for that, and you're to be commended for having him on.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. And anyone who's in a school district where a bond measure got passed, they really should go to his website, bonds.com, contact him, and get involved, and initiate a lawsuit, which they can do on their own without a lawyer.
Yes.
And Richard Michael explains through his website and directly personally how to do all that. And we need as many people as possible to file these lawsuits in court to overturn these illegal bond measures that were on the ballot that, as you had mentioned, as Richard Michael mentioned, violated multiple important sections of the law where the ballot statement where you vote yes or no was basically a campaign ad at public expense.
Right.
And very deceptive. In fact, in El Segundo, they failed to disclose the interest rate. They just said something like a interest rate allowed by law. So they did not disclose the maximum rate that's 12% by law.
Right.
And then they did not disclose the bond duration like they're required to, like is it 30 years, 40 years, because they're supposed to do that. Instead, they said, well, bonds are outstanding. So the school school districts and the county clerk's office in Los Angeles and up and down the state that's been going on, they're totally violating the laws, abusing the voters, abusing the taxpayers. And we have a government running totally amok. And this ties into my other issue. The reason why the Democrat Party wants to register and then ban and then confiscate all firearms from law-abiding Americans has nothing to do with crime. Because the types of things they're doing are the things that our founders of our country had a revolution against King George III to gain independence. We essentially have a condition today of taxation without representation. And as you had mentioned, the Democrats gerrymandered the state of California, which is, for people who don't understand this, it's the equivalent of rigging the elections before Election Day. It's like just as if they stuffed the ballot box with a whole lot of ballots for their candidates or took out ballots cast for the Republican Party candidates, the way they do that. And for people who want to know a little bit more about gerrymandering, what they do is they redraw the election district boundary lines in a way to concentrate Republican voters in the fewest number of districts possible. And also they use areas that have massive amounts of illegal aliens living in them, the population. They use those to create districts where a Democrat can win with maybe half the number of votes as a Republican would have to win in one of these Republican districts. So they also
Correct.
use illegal aliens.
Yeah, now let's stop right there and explain that to people. This is often misunderstood. I'm not sure if this issue has reached the United States Supreme Court yet, but one of the major reasons that they don't want the question asked on the census about the legal status or immigration status of the occupant of a dwelling is because they don't want Republicans or anybody else to be able to distinguish between citizens and persons within a given congressional district. So I think we're using, it's either 700,000 or 750,000, something like that, additional people get you another seat in Congress. Well, how do you do that? Do you count 750,000 people, or do you need 750,000 citizens? So in these areas, by flooding the zone with lots of illegal aliens, they are able, who are non-citizens, legal or illegal, they're not citizens. Flooding those people in there gives them increased representation in Congress. And so
also, Mike, an increased number of votes in the Electoral College for electing the president. So this is the way the Democrat Party is stealing elections.
Yes.
So illegal aliens are effectively voting, even if they did not get registered to vote and did not vote, although huge numbers of them were registered to vote by Democrat Party-aligned organizations.
That's right.
The Southwest Voter Registration Education Project has been doing this at least since 1994 that I'm aware of.
That's right. So and that's because for anybody paying attention out there who might have missed that, the Electoral College provides at least one electoral vote per congressional district. So it's basically the same as a member of Congress and Senate with a few others added in between. So, as you point out, now all of a sudden, non-citizens are in effect voting for Congress, and non-citizens are in effect casting a vote by their presence for the next president of the United States. It's a complete corruption of our citizens, or of our system.
And under gerrymandering, what happens is there's several problems created from that. First is the majority party in the states, California, the Democratic Party, gives itself an unfair, disproportionately large number of representatives in the state legislature and in Congress and in the Electoral College.
Yes.
The second problem is they create safe, non-competitive election districts for all incumbents of both parties.
Both parties, right.
So now you have these incumbent politicians that instead of paying attention to the voters and the taxpayers, they cater to the special interests, to the labor unions, to the big real estate developer interests, to big alien organizations. So
that's right.
The problem is it corrupts our political system, and you have less responsive and more corrupt politicians in both parties as a result of gerrymandering.
That's correct. We've moved over to party governance as opposed to representative government. It's a terrible tragedy. Mike, I hope that we will see you at the school choice event this coming Saturday, March 9th, over in Pasadena. Please make it up. And also,
I'll try to. I got a real I will try to, but if I can't make it, I hope everyone else, whoever can, will do. What's your website?
Our website is schoolchoice2020.org. And Jonathan, why don't you tell Mike how to go on there and contribute?
Well, you just go to schoolchoice2020.org, and there's a tab that's labeled Contribute. And right on the main page is you can RSVP for the event on Saturday.
Mike, you've been in politics. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, two things. One is people listening need to get their children and younger folks involved in listening to talk radio, even if they stream it over the internet, which they can do.
Yeah.
And they really need to get young people involved, because I believe that people listening to radio talk shows are an aging demographic, and we need to teach not only children and younger people our American values and traditions and how to protect freedom, but part of that is teaching them to listen to talk radio, to call in, to participate, to get involved, and to contribute money to organizations such as yours.
God bless.
And other good
Hey, Mike, that music means that I'm gone here for the top. We're up on a hard break. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. When we come back after the hour, we'll have Brent from Los Angeles, and we'll talk about all the other good stuff. Mike Alexander, Jonathan Wilson, Radio Free Los Angeles, back with you after the top of the hour.
Come in, Southern California. This is Radio Free Los Angeles. Do you copy? Repeat, do you copy?
Now transmitting from behind the Iron Curtain in the People's Republic of California, we bring you the voice of free men, free markets, and limited constitutional government. Welcome to citizen-sponsored Radio Free Los Angeles with President of the California Taxpayers Union, Mike Alexander, and editor of the Taxpayer Gazette, Jonathan Wilson.
Yeah, you bet. And thanks again, Basil Hoffman, for recording that wonderful introduction. In addition to being the voice of free men, free markets, and limited constitutional government, we have added now for the next 2 years and beyond, we are also the voice of choice. That is, voice of choice in education. Schoolchoice2020.org is the place to go to get involved. We're going to go at the end of this half hour. We will have our Government Grifter of the Week award. But in the meanwhile, we have some wonderful callers. Let's start off with Brent in Los Angeles. How are you this evening, Brent?
Doing great. Hi, Mike, and hi, John.
Sorry to keep you waiting so long there, but we had a lot going on in the last half hour.
No problem at all. It's very interesting, and if you need, I'll just hang on till next week.
No, fire away. You got a couple things that are worth saying. Let's get to them, and then we're going to spend some time talking about how to get involved and the importance. Fire away, Brent.
Yeah, I'm calling in with good news and bad news. The first is I wanted to support and promote the San Bernardino County Board of Supervisors, of all people. They just voted to ban mega solar and wind farms on over 1 million acres of private land. Mm-hmm. And to me, this is magnificent. We're going to be saving the birds of San Bernardino.
Okay, now, what was motivating this? You know, usually anytime I hear that a county is regulating private property, it sounds like they're concerned that somebody was going to make some money, and it wasn't them. What motivated this ban? Do you have any idea?
Well, according to the articles I read, it seems as if the residents are concerned with the destroying of the beautiful desert topography in many areas. Yeah. And in addition to the fact, you're just accomplishing hardly anything and destroying land and killing birds, and they're ugly. They're just disgusting. I think that's the primary motive, and I hope.
I know. It just prevents liberals' little toys from being put out there. Very interesting. But you also had another comment on the California Republican Party.
Yeah, as far as that goes, I was at a private event, and I met Steve Frank and spoke with him of the California Republican Party. Yeah. He speaks very highly of you and wishes you well.
A man of extraordinary taste and judgment.
And we were speaking about the new chairperson, and he really paints a very dark picture of her receiving money from Never Trump people, being pretty much a leftist, and why she's in charge of the Republicans. This is just, it's catastrophic, I think, and it's not going to be improving the Republican Party. I wanted to get your opinions on that.
Well, I haven't had this gal on, I supported Steve. As you know, Steve and I have known each other for years.
Yeah.
He's the real deal. I read what this gal had to say about how we're going to take the fight to Democrats. We're going to reach out to Latinos and minorities or whatever it is. She touched all the bases. I actually want to get this gal on here and get her in the dunk tank. I haven't done my dunk tank segment for a while, but we'll get her in the dunk tank, ask her some questions, and if she doesn't get the right answers, we're going to hit that thing and in the water she goes.
Yeah.
Because I'm all for what she's saying. And what I really want to know from this gal when she comes on is she going to support school choice? If she's not, I'll hit that thing right away, because that's the only policy being undertaken by people who call themselves conservatives and Republicans. That would be so many of us in the school choice movement. There's many of us in many different parties, many different religions and races, but that's what we're doing to reach out on principle. And the Republican Party should, as a party, should support that kind of outreach if they're serious about making their case to those important demographic groups here. So we'll get this gal. I'm trying to remember what her name was.
It's Jessica Patterson.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Maureen or something like that. So we'll get her on here. See if she comes on, and we'll give her a fair chance to make her case. Maybe I'll have Steve Frank call in.
That would be wonderful. And I would hope that you would ask her about border security and sanctuary city and all the most fundamental basic principles.
Yeah. I hear you. Well, look, we got a couple of others callers out there.
Okay.
Brent, always great to see you. And if possible, please come next week. We'd love to see you again, because now we're going to get into real training on how to get the word out there, how to organize your school, your parish, your neighborhood, your zip code. We look forward to seeing you there,
Sounds
my
good.
friend. All right. Next up is Linda from Burbank. How are you this evening, Linda? It's always good to hear your voice on Sunday night.
I find it ironic that late this past week, that the candidate who ran against Alex Padilla, I can't remember his name.
Mark Moyser?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I heard that he got charged.
Really? With what?
I don't remember.
Was it related to the election, or did he get into it with his girlfriend?
Ironic that he got charged for stuff, but none of these Democrats that won got charged for anything.
Yeah, now you're talking about the guy that was riding around California on his bicycle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Mark Moyser, Meuser. So, I didn't hear that he got charged with anything. Well, we'll have to reach out and call him. And
it might be one of the other candidates, but I thought they said, the candidate Republican who ran for Secretary of State.
That was him.
California.
Yeah, he was the only Republican. Well, I don't know if he was the only one, but he was...
Oh, wait. It was in the primary, the one who ran against Moyser?
Yeah?
I think that's who it was.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but Mark...
I can't think of his name right now.
Yeah, because I don't know anything about Mark. But, hey, we'll check that out. Jonathan just got through doing a Google search.
Nothing came up on Mark. So
yeah, so everybody out there.
It was a candidate that ran against him in the primary.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, believe me, we even with our opponents. We always like to be accurate here, so we just ask that people withhold any judgment till we hear a little bit more. Linda, thank you so much for calling. We sure appreciate having you on, and we look forward to seeing you next Saturday. If you can, make it over to School Choice 2020 event. It'll be in Pasadena. You go to schoolchoice2020.org, and you have a place there to sign up for the event, register with us, and bring a friend. Bring several if you want. In fact, we know some people that are bringing several to this event. It's so important to them. That one fellow, I believe from Glendale, right here in Glendale, is bringing a number of people over, isn't he, Jonathan?
Yeah, I think he just registered 10 today. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So he's getting going. Okay, now since we've spent. Let me take a short call here from my friend Dave from Orange County. How are you, Dave? Are you signed up? Am I getting you $2 a month yet?
Oh, my man. Hey, Michael, I'm going to do that. And you know what you're doing with that?
What's that?
I'm going to sign up. I will sign up. But what you're doing, I do believe it's more local. Of what I want to talk about is a solution for the solution against Cortez.
I don't touch her. Don't do anything to her. We need her.
well, yes.
She's wonderful. She's a gift from the talk show gods.
Yeah, and so the time will come where we will have to do something when we can, and I want to talk about that a little bit and just be quick, okay? Because I know you're busy.
Sure.
You got your issue. Okay, but here's the thing, Mike. Just like you're doing the California Taxpayers Union, folks, any one of you, and Mike, if you'd allow me to give a website after I make my comment, so a tool for people, and it's to back up what I'm saying. It's called Non-Connected Political Action Committee. Any citizen or group of citizens, all you have to do is have a chairman, a secretary, and a treasurer, and you can start what's called a Federal Non-Connected Political Action Committee, where you can raise money and use it in any state against any candidate in support of defeat of. And here's some pretty good information about what happened in her campaign. Okay, I heard that this Democrat she ran against or was running against her, he really took things for granted and didn't campaign like he could have. And what happened was she won only by 4,000 votes. That's a good sign. When the time comes, folks, you can start your own political action committee and do ads against her and get her out. But here's the website.
Give them the website. Then I want to reply to you, and that will help me to begin the rest of our segment here. Fire away. What's the name of the website?
Okay, sir, everybody, take this down. It's called Your Political Wings, like an airplane wings, yourpoliticalwings.com, and learn. I can show you how to do this, okay? Give you the basics, okay, and I will show you. That is my website.
Okay, so yourpoliticalhotwings.com.
No, right? No, not hot wings. No, yourpoliticalwings.com.
Got it. All right, now, David, everybody's got their own approach to this. The most important thing that we can do is school choice. And school choice is not just a really good thing to be doing. It's not even the most important thing that we should be doing. It is the only thing that we should be doing. There are lots of different approaches to everything, but Dave, I hope that you will agree with me that we can't even begin to think about taking our country back if we do not first take back our children's minds, their hearts, and their souls.
Oh, I totally agree with you, Michael.
Well, I'm not so sure that you and a lot of other people do, because as soon as I walk away from you, it's reset to zero, and you're back surfing the web here, chasing this chicken back there in New York or whatever. As I said here before, the question is not how do they steal that extra 2% to get the election from 48 to 50.1%. The real question is, how do these thieves get from 0 to 48? Now, I want you to stand by, because I'm going to give you some hope here, my friend. There was a hat tip here to WorldNet Daily, WND.com. Great website. Joseph Farah is the editor. He's been out there for many years, and he cited in a recent column a Gallup poll that came out here about a week and a half ago. And that Gallup poll was a very simple one. It asked a sample audience in all the states of the United States whether they identified as liberal or identified as conservative. And the top 5 states were something like, New York, Vermont, Maine. There was a couple of others in there, maybe Massachusetts, something like that. But what was most notable was the state that was not included. And yes, you've already guessed, it was California. Now, what percentage do you think self-identified as liberal in California?
I'd be very interested to know that figure.
29%.
Wow.
Now, what percentage do you think in California under the poll identified as conservative?
I want to hear that.
Again, 29%. California is a very red state with some blue pus pockets along the coast, but this is a great place. So we have 60% of the state, and 40% of the state is non-aligned. Call them independents, if you like, declined estates. But there is, in that 40% over there, there's a lot of people that we can expect to vote with us. Now, notice that they didn't ask whether they were Republicans or anything. They just asked, do you identify as conservative? And that means that among that 40%, they may not identify as a conservative. They may not even identify as Republican, but I'll bet you we can get them to identify with us on issues. And the one issue that we can all agree on, that's the importance of the future of our children and the importance of the future of other people's children upon whom we're going to rely to support us in the future and to continue the future of this state and to keep it running. This is what we have to work on, and right now our children are in the hands of the 29%, aren't they?
I do believe
5.5 million out of 6 million. They are in the hands of the 29%, and that's why they're able to grow that number.
Plus
that's why they're able to grow it.
Out of that 40%, too.
That's correct. That's correct. So our top priority is to take our kids back. As my good friend, by the way, we've been using a new slogan on our spots, and it's been, you may recall it, it's, and it said, it's our children, our kids. What do we say, our kids?
Our kids, our money, our choice.
That's correct. How do you like that? Spiffy, right? Huh? Isn't that the kind of thing that makes you want to go on our website right now, schoolchoice2020.org, and sign up and give me that $2 a month? Thank you, Dave.
I will do that.
Come on, Dave. Do it tonight. Come on.
Set an example.
Now, but I'll get there.
It'd be a miracle. We'll pray to him.
You can do $5 a month, and you can do it tonight.
Unipro Sarah.
Tonight's the night, Dave.
Intercede for us. Yeah. Thanks, David. Okay, buddy, we will. All right, now, so I would like to skip our government grifter of the week word. I want to wrap up our last 6-8 minutes. I want to talk about organizing and the importance. Let me talk, I want Jonathan to talk about how to organize in the community, the simple steps that you can take, first of all, by coming to our program this week and getting connected. And then at the end, I want to talk to you the importance of you being connected with us and contributing even a modest amount of money each month, and the critical role that is going to play in attracting, shall we say, political investors to our cause. Jonathan, talk to our audience about how to get involved and what to do if you're as passionate about this school choice as we are, as you need to be.
Well, first of all, if you're interested in getting involved and helping with the grassroots organization, come on Saturday, and the event details are on our website at schoolchoice2020.org. But essentially, it's just reaching out to your social networks and your spheres of influence,
right,
and spreading the word and directing your friends, family, your neighborhood to our website and get them signed up.
You could call your children.
Yeah.
This is an older audience here on Sunday night, but we have children. We who in turn have our grandchildren. We're concerned about that. You can talk to your neighbors in the neighborhood.
Yeah, it's very simple. And what we're going to be training folks on Saturday is how to hold a neighborhood event. Mm-hmm. And that's essentially inviting your friends and family and having a discussion about school choice and explaining to them how they can get involved.
Yes.
Yeah.
And some of you might be older and you might be saying, hey, I don't get around so well. In fact, I don't know a lot of people. Or maybe you're one of those folks who's a little shy. Well, you might talk up your son or daughter or neighbor or something, and you might say, hey, look, I'll make my house available if you would like to invite some people over here for an event. And by the way, if you don't feel like you're able to speak, we have a lot of people affiliated with us who can and will speak to your neighborhood group. This is essential that we make this happen. All you have to do, it's not very much. You don't have to put on a big party, do you, John?
It's very simple, yeah. It can just be a gathering in your own living room on a Sunday afternoon.
Right.
And if you're not comfortable speaking, Mike can come and speak to you.
That's right.
So,
I don't have anything else to do on Sunday.
We can handle all the details and help as much as you like. So
no, I can. Well, I've spoken at several hundred of these events over the last many years, and nothing is more important. I will come, and there are other people who will come.
Yeah, and at this point in our process, we're gearing up for the 2020 election. So over the next 6 to 8 months, it's all about growing our numbers and reaching as many people as possible.
Yes.
So, and then beginning next year, we'll start, organizing geographically.
Yes, and right now, and that segues, as they like to say, directly into the issue of fundraising. Okay, so how do you go about this? Many of you out there have been listening to politics for years. You're pretty seasoned, not only a seasoned citizen, but a seasoned political observer. Many of you have been voting for 40 or 50 years out there, and I can hear you saying, hey, how in the world are you going to mount such a large initiative, one that's going to be fought bitterly by the school teachers and the public employee unions, by people coming in from Moscow to fight this? They'll be fighting in this from all over. You want to get Ocasio-Cortez or whatever her name is? And let me tell you, she'll be out here big time campaigning against school choice because that's who they are. So how do we do this? We reverse the order. Rather than waiting till this initiative is on the ballot, because we can probably buy signatures, but waiting until this thing is on the ballot to start getting grassroots support is the wrong way to do it. We need to start that in advance. So what I need for anybody and everybody to do is to go on schoolchoice2020.org and get connected. First of all, tell us who you are out there. Be signed up just to be in touch to receive updates and notices. Leave us your telephone number, particularly your cell phone number. I'll tell you flat out why we want it, because we need to be able to text you later on. Now, before you say, Mike, I don't want nobody doing no texting, I got you, but hang in there. Let me tell you what I have in mind. The third thing we need from you, your name, your cell phone number, your email, so that we can actually communicate with you. You have to stand up and to be counted. And then the fourth thing that we need you to do is to sign up for a contribution of any amount. We would prefer that it's $10 a month. You know who you are and what you can afford. But let me tell you, I can give you that sermon later on. Let me tell you how it helps me. Now, we're going to be able to raise a significant amount of money to do initial organization, but to scale up and actually get all the signatures and later on to actually get this passed is going to require major contributors and organizations who are going to come in with hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars to help pass this. And the only way that we can persuade them is for us to persuade you. What they're going to be looking for, what they're going to want to know is that you, the citizens, the parents, the families, the aunts, the uncles, the grandparents, just the plain concerned citizens concerned about freedom in our society and the future of America, that you are willing to stand up and to be counted. And, of course, the greatest act of sincerity in the whole world, or as my favorite quip, the sincerest words in the English language are not "I love you," or "I'm from government and I'm here to help you," or "I promise that." No, the sincerest words in the English language are "pay to the order of." So you need to take and pass a sincerity test so that when Jonathan and I sit down with major contributors or smaller contributors, they're going to want to know, how are you doing? How many people are you in touch with? How many contributors do you have? You know, it's like selling a website. They really want to know that there is support for this program out there. And that's where it comes for you. So you go to schoolchoice2020.org. And sign up there. Give us some love. Give us your name. Give us your cell phone. And come next Saturday at Pasadena. You can sign up there. You come down, meet us in person. Help us bring some friends if you have any. They'd love to see what we've got going on. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight, all the callers, Jeff, and our wonderful call screener, Brooke. Thank you so much. And Jonathan, thank you, sir, for being
great
here
show
tonight,
Mike.
Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you all next week. Radio Free Los Angeles, over and out.